G'day team, thanks for joining us here for another episode of the Grey Man Podcast. I'm your host Harley Fox. Today on the show I'm joined by Tim Thomas. Tim is a veteran of the Australian Army. He's actually one of the OG recruits from the Direct Entry Special Forces recruitment drives back in the 90s. So he spent his entire career with 2 Commando after passing selection obviously. And since leaving the Army, he has created a breathwork program for all humans, not just veterans, but to optimize your breathwork and especially for your sleep, which is a huge thing for everybody, is getting that nailed. So he's got an app called Breathwork in Bed, and great app. We're going to dig into it today. We'll actually do some demonstrations of his some of his techniques, and you get to see what it's all about. Awesome chat with Tim today. Really hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe, help the channel grow. I say it all the time, flogging a dead horse. Help me out. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. Cheers. Tim, welcome, mate.
Great to be here, Harley.
Thanks for coming. Looking forward to digging into your life and your journey and your breathwork in bed, as the app goes. So it's exciting stuff to go from being an operator and more into that sort of holistic wellness stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, sometimes you do all the wrong things to get you into the right places. Yeah, I know your story too. I was listening to it on the way out here, and I was quite impressed how, in some ways, I'm not surprised. I'm dyslexic. I see things in patterns and I talk a bit differently, and I have to take ownership of that now. If I talk strange, I know that, all right? You don't have to remind me. But when I was listening to your story, I'm like, there's no wonder this guy joined the Navy, because he was buffeted by these elemental forces pushing him in a particular direction. But it's like you had this inner compass that had you navigate to where you wanted to get to. And that's what really stood out to me, like that small boat on the ocean getting buffeted by all these elements that were outside of your control, but you just had this inner compass. And I'm like, this is going to be next level. This podcast, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah. There's a lot of that searching for a family and a brotherhood and somewhere to belong and stuff like that as well.
I mean, we say that, right? We say that, and it's kind of obvious for everyone, but I always dig down into why, what is that? Was that so deeply put into us as humans? Of all the things that we could chase, we chase this connection. And to see it so organically play out in your life story, that was so impressive. And there was so many times when I'm listening to your story that I'm thinking in so many other realities, there's a bunch of Harleys that didn't choose that and chose that, and he's certainly not doing podcasts, and he'd be lucky to be in jail. He'd be lucky to be alive. I almost felt a little undergunned coming in here. I'm like, this guy's story is just something else. And I had to be here at a certain time, but I was only like halfway through and I'm like, can I circle the block a few more times before I come in here so I can listen to this? Yeah.
Yeah, finish it off on the way home.
Well, that's right. I do expect my fuel bill to be paid for coming here from the south side of Brisbane. That was part of the deal, right?
I would have sent an Uber. Send the Grey Man chopper. I actually went through that story again yesterday on somebody else's podcast. They asked me to come on and tell my story. So she actually got tears out of me that time. So that was... I think it was a woman interviewer this time, and I think her softness and empathy really brought out the softer side.
We need more feminine energy in this world. The world's crying out for it. My gosh. Yeah.
The women are getting a bit too tough, you think?
Well, I think I say it like this, and I say this about myself. I never tried to be too tough with all the things I had to do overseas. I just said, if it's affecting my sleep, then it's a problem. So if you're conducting yourself in a way, even if male or female, it doesn't really matter. We can live with certain imbalances in the daytime, I believe, because everyone's doing it, right? But when you switch into your unconscious mode, that's when all the imbalances start showing up. And as humans, we're incredibly tough. We can do dumb stuff for so long and still survive and still have that resilience. But I would only ask this, because ultimately people know what their truth is. They really do. Like, is what you're doing really working for you? Is what you're doing really working for those around you? Are you sleeping peacefully at night? And that's kind of my law of thumb for everything. Because, I mean, it's very easy to give a sweeping statement and put it on social media, and then people get this sense of, I feel seen, I feel known, I feel heard. But ultimately, if you ask, is it working? Am I getting more love and connection in my life? Is it bringing me peace? Is it bringing me power? Is it bringing me joy? And is it helping me sleep well at night? Mm. And you know, everyone's got their own journey. But that's kind of if I was to give a universal compass, that would be the one. Yeah.
That's that old adage, I guess. How do you sleep at night with what you do? And were you always like this? Were you always an introspective, deep thinker?
Oh, no, I was the guy that cashed in his tomorrows to live today, you know, because us humans were built incredibly tough. We can do dumb stuff for decades. And you know, midlife for me isn't so much, I don't think we're worried about getting older or the years racking up. It's all our dumb stuff getting to critical mass. You know, the stuff that we don't want to look at, you know, that's the stuff that really scares us. And, you know, the world we live in loves what I call pouring dopamine over dysfunction. You know, whether it's scrolling, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills, there's all these things outside of us that is there to stop us asking those deeper questions. So I only got to these deeper questions because I was the guy that was able to push hard enough, create this critical mass of dumb stuff, and it was either going to kill me or transform me. You know, villain or hero moments. There's been a few of those, and out of that, I do believe there is some form of intelligent spirit out there working, and even if it's not, it works for me to see the self-benefit in going through certain things that are terrible at the time, but then work out for the best. So even though they're terrible, are they really terrible if good things come from them? Or if I'm talking to, you know, veterans, I'll say, you know, you might not think you're special, but I bet you've been through some shit, you know, and our life is not meant to be spent in the shit. We were given that shit to turn into fertilizer. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's really hard concept to get around, because when you got that shit underneath your fingernails, there's no way in hell that looks like the fruit that's going to grow out of the garden that's going to taste amazing, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to see the good in it.
So that's sort of been my experience of, you know, doing all this dumb shit and transforming that into something that helps everything else grow, and then realizing there's a lot of other people in the same space, and just noticing the power of conversation. Us blokes, we don't often talk about what's really, really there for us, and unspoken words in my, you know, dyslexic observation becomes like rocks around your heart. There's words we want to say, but we can't. But here's the thing. If we see another guy who's walked the same path say those words that we wanted to say, then it's like those rocks dissolve. And guy, I know the moments it's happened when I've been in rooms where I've interviewed somebody and I've got a group of people and their jaw unlocks and they say words like, fuck, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
You know, that's that breaking of isolation. That's it's like the tourniquet comes off their higher intelligence, and it's like they can see it from a satellite in the sky. Whereas before that, they were in their fight or flight. It's just me. I'm the only one who's got my back. And you don't see it on the spreadsheet. And this is, you know, my lowest point was in 2011, and I'm about to kill a man. Okay, my time in the Special Forces ended a year earlier. government wasn't paying me, this would have been murder, right? And I'd reached rock bottom, undiagnosed PTSD, family falling apart, lots of alcohol. And the conventional wisdom said, you know, if everything's falling apart, you've got to see a psychologist, right? And Harley, that made no sense to me. I didn't know that person. I didn't trust him. I don't like talking about this stuff. Why would I want to talk to someone who I didn't trust or, know? But I go there and it's really difficult. And I soon realized that I just paid a whole lot of money, like it was $200 or $300, right, to see this guy who wasn't just incompetent. This guy was completely apathetic. He was like looking at the ceiling, you know, and you know, those people that slurp their drink really loudly, like, and I'm like, that's really, you know, distracting for me. Can you stop doing it? And he kept doing it. Like he just didn't give a crap, right? And then at the end, after I told him all the stuff I saw in service, all the things going on with the family breakdown, he kind of sniffs. He goes, "Oh, you think it was a problem with your mum and dad?" And the whole room froze like that. Just, and I made a quick scan of the whole room, and I saw this guy, and I was very aware that he claims to be a healer, but he's not just not healing; he's hurting people. So in my state of disconnect, it made a lot of sense to remove that guy. I'm going to be doing everyone a favor. And I'm like, this is going to be poetic. I see his glass frame psychology degree behind him. I'm going to take that and I'm going to feed his own words to him. And I get out of my chair to do it, right? I literally hands on the chair and I push myself out. And before I was in the Special Forces, I was early days mixed martial arts. I knew how to handle myself, and I knew if I committed to something, there's nothing that could stop me on this planet. And so I'm like, this is happening. And this is where it gets a little woo, and I think it's one of these, I just felt like a hand pressure on my chest. No crap, a hand pressure on my chest, and it wasn't enough to stop me, but then I had 3 words go through my head that I'd never heard before. Red flag Tim. And that was enough to stop me. And I'm just stuck in this moment, hands on the side of the chair. And I'm like, Tim, you're the toughest motherfucker you know. And you are struggling in this system that doesn't understand, doesn't seem to want to help, and seems to want to keep you sick. How many other people do you think are in the same situation? And I just fell back into my chair feeling completely defeated, deflated, like what's the fucking point? But that's when I saw them, thousands of people to my left, thousands of people to my right. And they were stuck in the same situation as me, trying to get help in a system that didn't seem to help, seemed to want to keep them sick. And I saw all these, they weren't saying anything, but I could feel their thoughts and I could see their faces. And it was like, Tim, you know, if you can find a way forward for you, you have to find a way forward for you. Because if you find a way forward for you, you're going to find a way forward for us. And I'm just... You know what? It doesn't matter if it takes me a week, a month, a year, a decade to make an inch of progress. If I've got 1 million people either side of me, that's 1 million inches of progress. And that moment made me aware of 2 things. One is that it doesn't matter if the pain's emotional or physical. It gets to a certain duration or intensity where it transforms without the person knowing it into loneliness, isolation. I'm the only person going through it. Or, you know, neurologically speaking, you're in your amygdala, your fight or flight. It's super fast, but it's super dumb, you know, and it's super exhausting. And when we're in that lonely state, disconnected from other humans, we can justify all sorts of dumb stuff. I literally justified in my own mind killing a guy because in my mind that seemed right.
Doing a lot of favor.
Yeah. And when I saw that the rapid transformation of what happened when we broke isolation, then I also started realizing that if I'm the only one that's got my back and I'm in a state of disconnect, I can't drop my guard for a second. So if I did, something bad's going to happen. And so guess what? I'm not sleeping because sleep is a time where you actually have to let the conscious mind go. And so loneliness and fatigue were the two main parameters I set up when I started working in the early days of Mates for Mates.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'd run these veteran groups where I'd have people sharing their stories, and these spoken words would dissolve the rocks around, other people's hearts. And then you couldn't just leave it there. You had to then lead them into restoration of sleep quality, getting people out of fatigue. And so the metric of success in all my programs is how much sleep improved. And then, because we noticed if we did that, then all these other metrics that all these other pills and stuff are there to sort of help with disappear. Like the root cause of a lot of problems is loneliness and fatigue. And if you can remove those two blockages, it's like everything else comes back online. And we noticed that these guys with very little external resources besides breaking the isolation, improving fatigue, their inner compass would switch on and they would just know exactly where to go. Mm-hmm. They already knew. They just needed those two little blockage removals for us to be in our naturally connected state. And that's sort of been my life's work post-service after that sort of villain hero moment. I could have killed the guy, could have gone to jail, could have self-justified, could have stayed in that space, or I was pushed into that space to have me break my own isolation to see all those other people. And then it's no longer me making choices, because I know it's, when you're hurting, it's so hard to make progress. But if you ask that golden question, how many people are in the same situation as me, and give it a number, I thought at least a couple of million, then an inch of progress isn't an inch. It's a couple of million inches. And that was like the spirit showing me, well, if this can work for you, it can work for others.
All of what you've said kind of rings a tone of service and self-sacrifice to help others. Is that what you think drew you to the military in the first place, that desire to help and serve?
I wouldn't say it's that. Yes, that was part of it, but a few things. I would say three main contributors. One, I was very aware, like my superpower is I have instant retrospect. I can appreciate something without it being taken away. And at that time in early 2000s, I was very aware that Australia was a very safe place. People often left their windows open. There was no fear that was in comparison to other countries. We just assume there's no one running around with guns. We just assume, there's so much baseline safety that other countries don't have. I appreciated that before it happened, and I thought, well, I am quite prepared to fight in other countries before that fear comes to Australia. And at the time, there was the Bali bombings, and I had a mate in the Sari nightclub. And I thought, well, these guys aren't respecting boundaries. I'd rather off-centre them in their own country so that before they get organised, right? And the other one was, like I mentioned, I was a professional fighter, and back in the 90s, it was a lot of work but no money. And I wanted to start a family. And so I needed a job that paid money, but I had no qualifications other than years of training in a gym with martial arts. And at the time, if it was maybe 20 years later, I might have made a quid out of it, right? But back then, it was in these underground sort of biker bars, semi-legal, and you could smoke in bars back then. So you're walking out to the ring, coughing up half a lung from all this secondhand smoke. It was and then you're expected to perform athletically anyway.
People doing lines of coke in the dressing room.
Yeah, well, that was the early days, right? But yeah, so I needed a job and I needed something that paid money. And then but the army seemed a little, not sure, but then they started this marketing campaign for DRSF, Direct Recruiting into Special Forces. And it was the very first time in Australia's history where something like that was available to the civilian populace, because before that point, you had to spend 2 years in a regular infantry battalion before you could even apply. With that in mind, when the first mob went through, do you think we were very welcomed, in that space? Man.
Because you still had to go through your infantry training.
Well, we had to do all the basics, but we were considered civilian queue jumpers. Yeah, two of the most hated things in the defence force.
That's so true. Yeah. So you got they beasted you and treated you like shit, or
Well, they deliberately tried to stop the scheme. They said, we've got to stop this scheme before it gets any legs. And we've got a statistic that still stands in Singleton, 300% more injuries than anyone else. We had the medics, like, I forget the name of the top medic, going to the CO of the School of Infantry going, what's going on with Coral Platoon? They've got 300% more injuries than anyone else. And that's when it started rolling downhill. And we just thought it was normal, right? But they would, in the back of Singo, they've got all those cactuses with the barbs that are like 2 inches long. They'd crawl us through that, and then they'd crawl us through the fields where there was kangaroo shit. And we'd get bursitis, so your elbow would be bigger than a rock melon, right? And so many guys were broken. There was 60, 70 guys that started, less than 15 got through. And I only got through because everyone got injured. When I got injured, I was able to catch back up. And the maximum age allowable was 30, and I was turning 30. So one of my tipping points, Harley, was the idea that, if I don't do this now, I might regret it, right? And when you're in that space, it's so immersive. It's not just what you have to do on the job. You need to organise all your personal life as well. Just paying bills, just, sorting out admin, moving houses and stuff like that. I was fortunate enough to have a really good missus at the time. And in my first week of Kapuka, I find out she's pregnant.
no?
And I did the math. I'm like, my firstborn kid's due to be born halfway through selection. And that was hanging over my head. I'm like, just ignore that, just keep going, ignore that, keep going, right? And we get to selection, and they said, look, Tim, this is Special Forces selection. You can either do selection or see your kid being born. You can't do both. And I'm new to all this. Like, it's hard enough, all this training, let alone all this other stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, I have to see this from the kid's perspective. What does that kid really need? Does he need me physically there at his birth, or does he need a dad with a job?
Oh, yeah.
So I call her my then wife, not my ex-wife, because there's too much negative energy around ex. Okay, so I call her my then wife because I stand for a positive future. And one of the proudest things I can say is it didn't start good, but our relationship now is currently good. I was literally over there at my then wife's house last night having dinner because she'd just gotten back from an overseas trip, and I figured, because my parents, obviously, we got grandkids. I brought my parents over, and I figured, she's been overseas. She's probably hasn't had a decent steak, so I bought a bunch of steak, and it was just great, right? And as much as we're not like buddy friends, we can be in the same room and still be cool.
Yeah.
And that's super proud of that. And I have appreciation for her when I look back on stories like this, because she had to do that at that time, supporting me, but also going through her thing for the very first time, right? And of course I got, all the help she needed, family and all that sort of stuff. And they let me have a phone on selection. What you're not supposed to have, but they let me have a phone just so I could be in communication, with my then wife. And
That's good.
on one of the hardest days, fire and movement, I mean, everything's hurting, but everything's really hurting this day. And I get this message, the water's broken, it's all happening. And I look up at the trees, Harley, and I'm like, I'm going to fucking hate this day for the rest of my life,
Hardest day, just amplified.
Like, and I didn't want to say it, can it get any worse? Because it always can, right? And we're setting up the night harbour, and I just laid out the claymores, and I'm, stringing it out as I'm coming in. And then out of nowhere, this officer pops out of the bushes. And I made a point of introducing my beautifully pregnant then wife to the people that were, running the show. And he goes, oh, how's it going? I'm like, no worries, sir. He goes, how's Shannon going? I said, look, it's all happening, the kid's being born. And he goes, do you want to go see her? and I lie, and I just automatically go in fight pose. I put my right hand behind my back and make a fist, and I'm looking at this guy's chin. Okay, because this is what they do in selection. Oh, you want a drink of water? You're really thirsty? Tip it out in front of you. Oh, we'll just go to the truck, and then the truck drives off. Right? They test you. I'm like, okay, I knew. Okay, I'm going to go to prison tonight. I'm going to knock this officer out. You know, because this is something I'm unfuckwithable about. Right? You've just crossed the line here, and I'm just, it's just this standoff, right? This really tense standoff, you know, as the sun's going down, like, you know, but then he said, no, I'm serious, Tim. Do you want to go? I'm sensing that this guy's actually genuine. And then I sort of soften a bit and I'm like, yeah, I'd really like that. And the good thing about the army is if an officer gets on the phone and starts swearing, shit happens really quick. You know, so two vehicles came screaming up. One was just one to take my bombs and bullets off me, and the other one was just to grab me. And he drives at full speed to the hospital, and it was about 40 minutes away from where we were. And I'm running through the hospital, and I've been in the field for weeks, so I'm like stinking, and I still had cam on my face, and like it didn't matter because I'm like, I got to get there, right? And I'm rushing, and people kind of looking behind me like, what's he running from, right?
Yeah.
And then I burst into the delivery room, and everyone's like, oh, because I'm cammed up, and I didn't even know it, right?
We're under attack.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, she's there, like, you know. And then I go in there, and I was able to see my firstborn being born.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
How good. And then how long did you just saw the birth and then back in the truck?
I saw the birth, but then they had complications, and my then wife thought she was going to die because there was a lot of bleeding. There was something not happening that was supposed to happen, and she's like, Tim, I'm scared. I'm like, oh, I'm scared too. And so they took her away, and I'm in this room with this child. There's so many things going through my mind, like new father, seen an incredible experience, feeling like your wife's in a life-threatening situation. I'm like, what can I control here? And I was raised by a church minister. And so I grabbed a little bottle of water, I blessed the bottle of water, and then I made the sign of the cross on my boy's head and on his chest, and I baptized him. And emergency baptisms are still part of the protocol. And so that's what I did. And then the nurse came and took my boy. I went to where my then wife was getting wheeled into surgery, and I just said to the doctor, look after her, you know, and they went in through a particular set of doors, and I just waited there. But, you know, dumb Tim, that's just the in point. That's not where they come out. So I'm like 3 or 4 hours later, I'm still there. And then I see the doctor walking out in like casual clothes with his bag, and I just sprint after him. I'm like, what's going on? I've been waiting. He says, no, you're supposed to wait. I'm like, I didn't know that. He says, no, look, everything's fine. And I remember those moments, everything just went, And then I saw my then wife. She was good. The child was good. And then I went straight back into the field and we started what was called the demarcation phase of selection, where it's 3 days, 3 nights, no sleep, no food. You could drink water, but it was just hard, heavy carrying stuff.
That's right at the end.
Yeah, towards the end. Yeah. And as much as that was physically one of the hardest things I've done, there was this real deep inner smile, the fact that I'd seen my firstborn born and no one could take that away. Yeah, so it was just one of those unique moments that I probably wouldn't have experienced had I not chosen that particular military career.
Yeah. How did you feel towards that officer after that?
Oh, yeah, solid dude, good guy. And that decision made all the difference, you know. And it's funny how people in these positions, if they only knew how much impact their decisions made, I think it would give them another layer of awareness, deliberation.
Yeah. It would make a massive difference across all of defence with satisfaction and retention and job satisfaction and wanting to be there and feeling good about what you're doing instead of getting all of those things restricted and taken away from you. It's like, what have I done? I've given up the birth of my child to be here. I hate myself for it.
Well, you said a big word there, retention. You know, it's one thing getting people in the door, but how do you actually have them stay, you know? Because people don't often stick around if needs aren't being met. And if needs aren't being met, then it's a particular kind of person that sticks around. And that's, in my experience, it's not always healthy if it's not a healthy system, you know, to be in.
What sort of person are you referring to?
I guess I'm talking about the one that knows how to play the military game. It's not about the greater good, creating a good environment. It's about, you know, it's not more for more. It's not increasing the total sum game. It's more for me. You know, so manipulative people can go up in the ranks in an unhealthy system, and they know how to protect themselves. You know, meanwhile, all the workers are working so hard, they don't have the capacity to really call people on their crap, right? And these people that are in these positions of power, I think deliberately keep sort of off-centering you so you never actually see their crap, and they're scared of being seen for what they really are. Because it wasn't until I actually got into a position where I was training others that I realized that it's very easy to screw over well-intentioned people. You know, you can use their best intentions and combine it with your own fuckery to completely serve your own means. And I made a promise to never do that once I saw that pattern happening. And I remember it was a joke, but I meant it. I said, look, I might not be a great instructor. I'm really good at making you feel really shit, worse, you know, you know, that kind of stuff, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you stuck around for a while then if you made it into training roles?
Yeah. So the tide changed with the initial direct recruiting into Special Forces intake. Initially they all hated us, but all that changed after Afghanistan, because we showed that we could do everything everyone else could do, and then all of a sudden, this is a great scheme. Let's encourage it. So, you know, without dwelling on this, I do need to say this: when you get your beret, that's a really big deal, right? But when the DRS 1 group were qualified for their beret, they said, okay, you've done your selection, you've done your insertion course, put your beret on and go scrub out the shitters. Yeah. And that's what we did. We put our berets on and we scrubbed out these shitters, and I remember these urinals were so old and so uncleaned that you had to chip off the banked up uric acid from the metal urinals, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this stuff, you're chipping it and it's splashing in your face. And I'm like, okay, yeah, taste of victory.
I'm a commando.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it doesn't feel special.
So was your intake, was it mixed? Like when you did selection, it was also with the other soldiers that had been in for a couple of years and they'd applied?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're all bunched in together. And then you got posted to Commando?
Yeah, well, one of your previous guests, Aaron Johnson, we did selection together.
Yeah.
So
he was already in.
Yes, he was already in, and you know what? He wasn't a dick. He was actually he gave the time of day to people, as my experience of him, and I believe he'd done selection before, so a lot of us were picking his brain about this, that.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Was he a giant man back then too?
Oh yeah, and that deep booming voice. No one talks about it. I'm going to call you Aaron if you're listening. I love your voice, and yes, we should catch up again. Yeah.
He'll be, it'll be this Saturday, actually. Oh, for those listening to this, it's out a couple of weeks ago. So, you can listen to it. Yeah, he's getting released this weekend. Yeah, good dude. I met him at the combative centre. So.
Yes, that's where he got into. See, I actually mistakenly thought, well, I've spent, over 7 years full time perfecting unarmed combat. When I get into the army, they'll really value that, right? But as a digger, you have no impact of any. And maybe I was doing it wrong, but yeah, it was only when I left to Commando that they started getting this real big push around the unarmed stuff. And yeah, I've spent a little bit of time with Aaron. He showed me around the unarmed combat sort of space, and yeah, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, so I go through a lot of changes. Remember, I was up on the top there near one sig. And I used to work at corporate boxes. I was a fighter, a Muay Thai fighter. Ended up becoming a trainer and pad holder and warming the boys up for fights and stuff.
Nice.
And then corporate box ran a show for 6RAR when they got back from a deployment back in, I don't know, it must have been 2011, if anyone remembers. And yeah, we did it up there at the old combative centre. And so it was all our fighters. So we just brought all the boys in, had a Thai guy. Nung, actually, his first fight in Australia, who's now my coach, still currently, Nung, from Nung Muay Thai. He fought that night and I warmed him up for the fight. Yeah, then the boys started punching on in the stands and chairs are getting thrown.
Was that your fight that night? That was on the Gold Coast? Is that the one that they started throwing chairs?
No, this was at the combative centre, the old one.
Oh, okay, righto. So
On base,
I know
yeah.
there was another. Okay, I got the wrong one. Go on. Yep, sorry.
Oh, you're talking about that one with the bikers and stuff and the
Yeah,
melee. And
okay.
yeah, no, that wasn't us. I think that was like a Evolution or one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a game changer. Yeah. And then the combative centre moved over to the old gym, the old cinema, sorry. And then, Jono made all the big changes to make it into what it is today.
That was massive.
And Paul Cale obviously wrote the PAM.
Yes. Yeah, like Paul was in Delta, I believe. I spent a bit of time in Delta before I left too. And yeah, he was, legend in his time.
Mm. Yeah. He's still going hard.
No, I don't think I've seen him since 2010. Yeah.
Going through some issues at the moment. But,
I've heard, yes. The digger net, he's pretty quick on that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you enjoy your time in SF? That's a thoughtful or?
Well, look, for whatever reason, you know how like you've got this inner knowing in you, like regardless of what was thrown at you, Harley, you knew there was something you really wanted. You don't know who gave it to you. It's just in you. And so I knew that if there was going to be a war in my generation, I had to be a part of it.
Yeah.
There was a song that changed my world, and the chorus was, "I've never had to knock on wood, but I'd like to think if it's such a life-changing song. I want to get it right, but the line is, I'm not a coward. I've just never been tested. I'd like to think if I was, I would pass. And so the question I asked myself early in life was, do I want to be someone who knows someone who's done something that's really pushed themselves, or do I want to actually be that person? And the ego part of me says, yeah, I want to be that person that people know, So there was a bit of ego in there too, right? But that sort of thought of I don't want to go through life and not be tested by, these events, and I want to see how this reacts. And so when you asked me that question, I automatically went to, the best of days, awesome. But then the worst of days, it's like you've never had any experience of a good day. And so, but that said, we mentioned this earlier, good things can come from bad things. So is that thing actually bad? So, and that's a hell of a thing to say, because then when we restore our ability, or when I restored my ability to see the good that came from bad, then all of a sudden I stopped being a victim to it. Because the PTSD I had wasn't related to anything I saw in deployment. That kind of just locked certain things in place. It was bullying when I was in the unit, from people that were in positions of power, that knew how to screw people over, that wanted to, that shouldn't have been in positions of leadership. They knew that, but they knew how to screw people over to stop their higher thinking. But if they saw someone that could actually see through them and go, you shouldn't be leading men, and you can't scare me. And when they see that you see them, they will do, there is no bottom to the evil shit people will do to have themselves not seen. And I was the recipient of that, to the level where I could handle anything you can do to me. I'm built for damage. But the things closest to me was used to hurt me. And I don't want to say something as simple, but we were on deployment. My wife had given birth to our second child just 2 weeks before, and I was allowed to have my laptop. And I made a promise to my then wife that I'd write every day, and she'd send me pictures of kids in the bath, her in the bath, all that sort of stuff. And this one particular sergeant, who I was later to find out was going through his own midlife crisis. And overseas, you can get pharmaceuticals that you would never be able to get in Australia, basically speed, right? And so this guy wasn't his full self. I've met him since. This was just a particularly low point. And I'm saying this now in retrospect, because at the time, it was like, this guy's an evil motherfucker. But because I saw him and he could see that there was no fear, he had to break me, because I was a clear and present danger to his little ecosystem of ego. And he took my laptop, saying it was a security threat, and then made copies of the hard drive and stuck it on the Army's version of the internet so anyone could see it. And he's making jokes about looking at it on the projector each night. And so can you imagine the things nearest and dearest to you, and you're in an overseas country, you're already hurting because you're doing a job, you're already missing your family. So to have that put on top of it, and my then wife was nursing, and she was so stressed out, she was worried her milk would dry up. And that went click, white noise for Tim. And it probably took me a good 15 years to get through that.
Yeah, right. And
there was times I'm like, you know what? I've been experiencing this pain for this long. It wouldn't be any worse in jail. I'm just going to kill this motherfucker, And I'm like, it would be easy to do that. This guy seems like he's untouchable, and it turns out he had quite a trail of private lives. Privates, when I say private, like the lowest rank in the army, that he's screwing over. But he was in this position of power. He knew how to play the game. And the problem is, though, when I was saying this to the psychologist when I got out after deployment, the psychologist's mouth fell up. He did, what? Holy shit, you need to put in a redress of grievance. And so I put in this redress of grievance, but this is where I find out that if a private challenges higher rank, I don't just challenge one higher rank, I challenge the whole system. And so the Army's really good saying, we'll connect and treat this particular individual as the enemy, and insecure males are really good at uniting over an external perceived threat. And I became that, and I would get ghosted. People wouldn't talk to me. People treat me like I'm invisible. Obviously, my closest of closest mates, they would still, be around. But there was a time there where it was, darker than dark. I'm a new dad, working long hours, going home, trying to support my then wife. And she was basically, she described it, she was a single mum that couldn't date because we're away for 230 days of the year, right? Up to 230 days of the year. So I really have to give her credit for that. But then to have that on top of that, I'm almost surprised I didn't do something crazy. And I'm, looking back on the, version of Tim 20 years ago, I'm proud of how he handled it. But that sort of, if I didn't go through that dark night, I wouldn't have been able to seek the light where it was needed. And I think the universe knew I needed that kind of incredible tonnage to break me and open my eyes to a better way of doing things. And that is what put me in the game of helping others from a really genuine place. And the outcomes were incredible. Understanding how pain worked. It's not the pain, it's the isolation that's a killer. And it's the fatigue that if you solve, all these other problems go away. And we had this goal of saving 40 veteran lives from suicide, right? Because that's approximately how many we've lost killed in action in Afghanistan. And we would have died happy if we achieved that. But that was actually achieved in less than 12 months with those two things. So I believe that all that stuff, shit, darkness, had me put there to be able to access the base blockage. And once those blockages were removed, people could do what they naturally did, and that's connect. So I actually am incredibly grateful for these experiences that I wouldn't wish on anybody. I would not wish on anybody. But if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be my heart of service wouldn't be as authentic, wouldn't be as, I'm not sure if I'm giving the right words, but I needed that to have me appropriately interact with others and have them moving into the light as quickly as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I got that metaphor on my arm, actually. For every dark night, there's a brighter day.
Well, that's a good thing when you're working with universal truth. It's not stuff that we've invented, it's stuff that we've discovered. Mm-hmm. So for you to discover that, you would have had to go through a lot of dark nights.
Yeah.
And when we discover universal truths, other people get them straight away. So the reason why, we were so effective, even in our first year achieving a lifetime goal, was because we're working with universal truth, not some book knowledge that some guy thought was a good idea and then let's just try and make this work. And this is the problem. A lot of people think, I want to help others, but what they're really saying is I have this idea in my head that I think will work and I'm going to try and make it work.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. But if you can, get the arse knocked out of yourself and go, well, actually, here's the truth of it.
Yeah.
And as a human being, it might be true for others, but going into that space, it's amazing how many, if someone says something and it makes complete sense to you, it's because it is a universal truth.
Yeah, 100%. That's why lived experience talks from people are much more powerful, right? People like Sean O'Gorman and Andy Fermo and stuff that have been through the trenches of life and now talk about how to recreate yourself, resonate with people rather than, like you're saying, people that just try and become keynote speakers without ever, coming from a silver spoon background.
Well, I think when you're hurting, it's very easy to be attracted to what's positive and powerful. But I like to sort of grade everything on what I call my P test, 3 Ps. military loves the acronyms. 3 Ps. Yes, it has to be powerful. Yes, it has to be positive. But the third one's most important. It's got to be permanent. Permanency. Because if you say you care about somebody, if you say you care about, change or improvement, it's got to be there, not just when you're there, but the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. And the only way I've been able to get even close to that is A, working with universal truths, but then B, giving people access to the power that they already have. And it's a bit like, Australia's got a lot of solar panels, and the good ones track the sun all day, right? They're always facing the most aligned way to their highest source of energy. And I see humans like solar panels, and a smart solar panel knows that, look, my energy is not enough for 2, but I've mastered a connection here. But most humans, they're like solar panels with free wills. We can point our solar panel at anything. We can point it at a relationship. We can point it at a set of shoes. We can point it at a media feed. But when you're really in a space where you can powerfully help others, you find that alignment. And as much as it might have taken you 10 years to get that, if you can get others aligned with that source of power, and you're not the source of power, this thing outside of us is. And in my case, breathwork to me is just the easiest way to access that, because everyone listen to this. If you've got ears, you've got lungs, and you can access that a certain way to then create the power, the peace, the, self-love even, with your own breath. So I don't see myself as a breathwork guy. I see myself as someone just showing people how amazing our own human bodies are, because we all own one. We just sort of somehow forgotten that we're happiest when we're most connected to others. And real connection to others happens from connections to ourselves. But I'm trying to say that if we are to be of permanency to others, then getting in touch with something powerful, like a universal truth of some kind, and then the time it took you to get that connection, you can help others in far less time. Yeah. And then giving permanent access to that, not just a hit it and quit it type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, which everyone wants these days. Just bang, bang, bang. I wanted to ask where, obviously, you're on a different path now, which we will dig into. But looking back, where did the violent streak come from? The MMA and I'm just going to fucking kill this guy. I think that'll be easier.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I was raised conservative Christian, and guess what? One of the ethos was turn the other cheek. So can you imagine how quickly the school kids found out that they could punch the big guy in the face and he wouldn't hit back? Right?
Where'd you go to school?
Regional South Australia.
Oh,
so you I know you went back and forth from WA a few times. You would have gone through my hometown, Ceduna.
Is that over in?
That's just as you go across the West Australian border.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so back in the 70s and 80s, think like deep South Mississippi, like really prejudiced, really violent. White was white, black was black. And my father worked for the Aboriginals, right? And we were sort of in this halfway zone. A lot of the whites in town didn't like us. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And the blacks, they didn't dislike us, but they didn't trust us. But at about the 3 or 4 year mark, luckily my dad's not a prick, they accepted him. And as he got accepted, I got accepted. And it was great as a kid growing up in that culture, because I found out really quick, they don't have a word for please. If you're a kid, they have to say yes.
Oh, yeah.
So when my dad would go out into the bush and visit these halfway camps, I would just run around to find the oldest guy. And I'd say, because I always made something and everyone made a particular thing. I'd say, what do you make? Oh, I make boomerangs. Oh, I make eagles. Make me a boomerang. I can't say no to a kid. And so we would go out in the bush together. He would show me that this particular bend in the tree of this particular tree, we're going to make the boomerang out of. And I'm not sitting there just looking at him. I'm part of the process, and it wasn't just like an entitled little white kid. This was me having fun and all these sorts of interactive stuff. And there's often other kids with me. And then we'd sit down with this old man, and this iron would anyone's worked with ironwood, it's they call it ironwood for a reason. This guy with his axe would just make it melt, and out came this boomerang. And you take the time to shave it down, heat it on the fire, rub some body grease on it, engrave it, and then he just hand it over. And to this day, I've still got some of those items.
Oh, no.
So it was great growing up in that space. Excuse me. And having that connection is an overused term. Like the way the Indigenous say, we're not connected to the earth.
To country or whatever.
Yeah, we are the earth. We're not connected to the land, we are the land. And I thought, well, if that's true, we're not connected to each other, we are each other.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to go there, right? I'm not Buddhist, but they've got a really good saying, the only difference between you and me is our thoughts. Mm. Okay. Take that for what it is. But that was where I grew up, but it was conservative Christian, turn the other cheek, and, there's that saying, energy can't be destroyed, it just gets transformed. So when I'm getting punched in the face by these kids, that energy's not going anywhere. That's transforming me into a bit of a hateful motherfucker.
Mm.
And when I started fighting, man, there was this side of me that was now allowed to come out.
Mm.
This
transferring that energy that was built up into.
Yeah, and I wasn't being stupid about it. Like I wasn't going to bars and getting into fights. I was training myself to be a weapon. But when it came go time, it was freaking on. And there were times when people didn't want to train with me because I was a little bit too serious.
Yeah. One of those. There's plenty of those in the gym.
Yeah, I got to own that. I'd never hurt somebody, but when it was on, it was on. It wasn't like in training, right? But like I would go full on. There was no other speed.
Yeah.
It's not like I would be one of those guys that if I had a submission, I'd crank it. But it was like fighting an animal. That's what people described it as. And then when this new sort of no rules fighting came out, and my specialty was wrestling, so back in the 90s, not many people knew what wrestling was. And we had a good few years head start on most of the fight scene. So this is where I discovered the power of breathwork, or the breathing, because even though I was far less experienced than most, I was sort of the white belt. I was the yellow belt. They could take out the black belts. Not because I was more skillful, but I understood, I could see clearly, dyslexic pattern recognition, that the breath outranked the thinking mind. So in these guys' minds, they were black belts and they could execute like a black belt. But if you could take their lungs out, then this becomes a white belt. So I never beat a black belt. I made them a white belt. So I would use my grappling to take the lungs out of them, and I'd be listening for a particular kind of breath. And when I heard it, I would disengage, stand them up, and then knock them out. Because it was, I wanted to cloak the fact that I was a ground fighter. I didn't want to be known as a ground fighter. If someone looked at my record, they're all knockouts, right? He must be a stand-up guy. Well, no, I wasn't. I was just using my ground fighting to fatigue people when they're, and here's a fun fact, and this is something when I'm working with professional athletes, I don't even know this. So, it's once you know this, a lot of things change. Okay, so the body, again, we all have one, we just don't know what it does. It's an incredible machine. But it has a ranking structure for blood. Certain parts of you are more important to your functioning that call rank on the blood supply. So if your brain feels like, hey, I'm not getting enough blood, it'll go, I'm more important than the rest of you guys. It'll knock you out and it'll get the blood. Your lungs, breath, that's really important. So if this feels like it's in danger or it's getting fatigued, it'll send a signal through your whole system, hey, I'm more important than everyone else. I'm getting the blood. And unlike your brain, this is a massive muscle group, okay? And it can take up to 1/3 of your total blood volume. And if let's just say you've got 9 litres of blood and this gets fatigued, you've only got 6 litres of blood circulating back in your arms and legs. So on selection, there was guys younger than me, because I was the oldest age at 30. They were faster, fitter, stronger, could lift more, probably even smarter than me, right? But they didn't understand that there was unseen power in the lungs. And they couldn't understand why old man Tomo just didn't stop, because their stronger arms and legs didn't have as much blood circulating through them, because I could hear their lungs. And like I said, people, as a fighter, you've got a certain practicality to strength. I mean, yeah, we all want to look good, but we want power when we need it. And, breath, lung strength, you can't show that off down the beach. So all these unseen parts really had made a massive difference. And then once I saw how damaging attacking someone's breath is, I now see how healing it is. Just like in Afghanistan, we would deliberately target the enemy's sleep. And there's so much data out around sleep, right? We didn't know about that. We just knew that if we could take the enemy sleep out for 3 nights, it would mess them up better than a bullet, And then when I come back to the country I love, it's like our modern world is attacking our sleep quality. And in that state of fatigue, we're in this group hypnosis, and it looks something like this. I don't have anything of value inside of me. Everything of value that gives me confidence, peace, power is outside of me. And so we get into this external world idea that the external world will give us a sense of self-worth. And in warfare, we talk about attacking the enemy's center of gravity, the thing that if you can attack, you can off-center them and you start winning. And as far as I see it, our human center of gravity is our sense of self-worth. And if you start looking at the world and its marketing machine through those glasses, that's what it's doing. It's literally attacking your sense of self-worth, and it's saying what you have inside of you is not enough. There's no value there. All your value is in the car, the house, the relationship, all these things outside of you. And breath, the thing I love about it is it's the easiest and most accessible way to connect back into this value, connect back into this sense of peace, power, connection to self, connection to others. And then so after using, the breath to in combat and fatiguing the enemy in combat, I now see how connecting people back into their breath, connecting people back into their quality sleep is really two of the most powerful things that you can do for somebody. And the current world we live in, they talk about it, but they're not actually giving the resources and time necessary to have people access that. Like I can't do what you do, Harley, but if someone wanted to destroy you, they'd destroy their sleep. Conversely, if someone really cared about you and they made sure you got a really good night's sleep, then you'd be bringing your gifts into the world even better. That's sort of how I see it. Yeah.
How did you go? Where did you get that from? Like, I know breathwork is huge in traditional martial arts. Like Hickson Gracie has got the book Breath, and obviously demonstrates it in movies like I think it was
The Hulk.
The Hulk, yeah. with Ed Norton,
Yeah.
How did you work that out or come across it? Did you read books or?
Well, initially it was just I noticed if I could take a guy's lungs out, I'd win. But I didn't know that it had a medicinal quality. And what we discover is we don't actually own a set of lungs. It's a medicine cabinet under here with a lot of different shelves. You breathe a certain way, you elicit a certain response. But I knew nothing of that. I was just fatigued as hell in Afghanistan, beyond physical fatigue. You train for hardship, but this was, you're losing your mates. You're seeing all sorts of crazy stuff happening. And I had this sense I was going to die. There's no point going on. I've only got 2 cents worth of energy. And then after sort of staring out at the desert, again, external voice said, Tim, if you've only got 2 cents worth of energy, you better invest that wisely. And so you never got anything really that you'd call quality sleep but every now and then you get horizontal in the dirt. And for whatever reason, I think I know why. When you're taking a sight picture, they get you to take a deep breath in, let it out slow, and then things are still for a minute, right? But that's on my dominant hand. So what I did, even though every part of me said, Tim, just try and sleep, I'm like, no, you've only got 2 cents worth of energy. Invest that in doing this, which I did was I pictured the tiniest hole in the tip of my thumb, and I sucked air through it down my thumb through a nasal inhale, like, and it was like I could feel something rushing down my thumb, and it felt bloody amazing, right? I'm like, what is this? And I kept doing it, and eventually this thing turned completely like white light. In my mind's eye, this was like glowing white light. I'm like, that is cool. And then I bring it from my thumb down my pointer finger, and then I fall asleep. I go to bed with 2 cents worth of energy. I wake up with $2. I'm like, that's an interesting exchange. Energy seems to be like money. How you invest it is how you get it back. So next time I got horizontal, instead of doing what I normally do and try and just close my eyes and sleep, I took that $2 and I breathed into my thumb, down all my fingers, down my hand, fell asleep, woke up with $20. And I kept investing this energy. Every dollar you invest in your breath, you get like hundreds of percentages return. And I noticed that when my energy level was low, it was all about me and life's hard and fuck this and fuck everybody, right? But then as my energy lifted and the quality of my sleep improved, because I couldn't work any harder during the daytime, I just worked on the quality of my sleep. And from that, my awareness started expanding. And I realized, I might be having a good day, but if my team's having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. And so what can I do to pour into their cup? I didn't know that what I was doing was called breathwork. It was just something that was working. And so I started making, and I'm a private, the guy paid to do what everyone else does. But I thought, well, I do have a large supply of good coffee, and I have a little coffee maker. I could make coffee for my team, and I could even make coffee for the teams around me. But this is where the saying, a lot of the obstacles are inside of you, because the second I went to thinking, I could make coffee for others, there was a part of me that's like, nah. The second you make coffee for others, you're going to be called the brew bitch. Because the thing about alpha males that are a little bit insecure, if you do an act of service for them and they didn't do anything for that, they automatically think you're below them. Oh, that's a servant. He's my servant, right? And my head was like, no way. I've worked too hard to be here. If someone calls me the brew bitch, they're getting politely knocked the fuck out. and this is a real conversation, but then because I was in that situation, and again, I've only heard there's whispers that you can sort of hear in your head, but there's only been 2 times I've actually heard a whisper outside of me. And this was one of the times where I heard a whisper outside of me, and it was less than 5 words. Take the ego out of it. That's what I heard. Take the ego out of it. And I'm like, okay. I'm making coffee for people. I got called the brew bitch. But here's the good thing. When you live so close to people, you can see how they interact, and you can see how your interactions impact on them. So I would see a vehicle over there, and they're just, when we're not turning on the enemy, we're often turning on each other. They're arguing, they're throwing shit at each other, they're swearing. I walk over there, hey, fucking brew bitch, and then, drop off the coffee. I walk back and I observe. And, they pour out this coffee, they take the first sip, and you can see that they take the first sip and then it registers, oh, this is real coffee. This is the real deal. And I had some caramel and chocolate syrup, not standard special forces deployment kind of stuff, but, I had it there. And these guys were like, what? And then they'd take the second sip, and then all of a sudden there was this collective sort of shoulders relaxing. They would sort of take a deep breath, and that's interesting. They would take this deep breath, and look up and look at the horizon.
Mhm.
And for that golden moment, they were no longer in the war zone of Afghanistan. They were back in a Sydney cafe with their mates. I'm like, maybe that's what this is. Me getting rid of my ego enables others to go from their fight or flight into their higher thinking, their amygdala to their prefrontal cortex. And I had to be in that space to ask that question, like, who did I want around me when good times turn bad? You know, do I want disconnected, cranky, fatigued men, or do I want rested, connected? And again, I had to go to that environment to have the idea of service to others, which was imprinted on me, you know, being a conservative Christian, but that was external in. When I was in that space actually doing it, then it sort of turned on the DNA of build yourself up to an abundant place so then you can pour generously into others. And I discovered the difference between servitude, you know, conservative Christian, I feel like I was raised in servitude, turn the other cheek. That's very different to servanthood, when you are of service and you can give generously without caring if people love you, hate you, call you the brew bitch. Funny things started happening because it wasn't just the teams around me that started enjoying the coffee. The officers saw this, and I supplied more coffee, and the officers, the NCOs and the diggers, for a second, they all sat down, they're all sipping their coffee, and they're talking about stuff in a real conversation. There was no more orders, and stuff got done. Ideas got pushed through, resources got allocated in that space of connection. More shit got done than with that sort of human connection than like months of orders and it's us and it's them and all that sort of stuff. And I wasn't saying a word. I was just the one guy that gave up his ego, honored the call to servanthood. And when I saw this thing happening, and I had nothing to do with it other than supplying a particular thing, right? I'm like, I think that's what the whisper was about.
So this is all just trial and error and watching and observing, and that's how you learned all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, just what worked if it worked in a crazy and arduous environment. You know, it's the old saying: if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid.
Mm.
Yeah.
I guess when you're saying that, like the taking a breath and being somewhere else, it's kind of like you never really think about it, but when you watch the sunrise or horizon, it's the first thing you do, right? Take a deep breath and take it in.
Yeah, no, our breath controls us and we control our breath. The Chinese for thousands of years have been saying, control your breath, control everything. And this is where once you have knowledge of what your breath can do, you can then breathe a certain way to elicit a certain state. And yeah, at some point I'd love to in the idea of permanency, I know that this is a powerful and positive conversation, but if at some point it works in for me to show you a very, very simple breathwork technique that has quite a big impact on your body, I'd love to give you and everyone listening a little something that they can take home, and if they forget everything we're saying, they can have that for the rest of their lives. I feel like that would be able to fulfill on the intention of permanency in that. Yeah,
that'd be good. And did you start going deep into research and looking into it all when you got out or got off that deployment?
No, not at all. I just, again, very practical minded way of going about it. But it wasn't until I was going through my divorce, like I discovered this stuff in the dirt of Afghanistan. When I got out of the services, I discovered a guy called Wim Hof. And I
was going to say, did you look into Wim Hof?
And I love his work. I think I've looked at my Wim Hof app the other morning, and I've done probably close to 16,000 recorded rounds. It's a big part of my life. But it wasn't until I was going through my divorce that again, another one of those hero villain moments where I'd lost house, home, money, regular access to kids, and I'm sleeping on my parents' couch. And you can bet at 2 a.m. there is a worse war zone than Afghanistan going off in my head, right? And the irony was I knew about breathwork. I was a breathwork practitioner, and I technically knew that if I breathed, I would get the peace and reconnection that I'm looking for. But at 2 a.m., when all these things were in my head, I realized that your mind's like a garden. Whatever you water grows. And I was watering the stress weeds. And they weren't just, these stress weeds, they don't just take over the garden, Harley. They eyeballs pop out of them and they become sentient. A bit like that Little Shop of Horrors, right? Mm-hmm. You're feeding this thing and then it becomes sentient. And they become super aware of the things that you do that feed them. And they become hyper aware of the things that you do that might kick them out. A small example of this is, before you do some form of exercise, there's a part of us going, you know what, let's not do this now. Let's do this later. Let's procrastinate a bit. They're the disempowered parts of you knowing that if you were to do exercise and you were to become empowered, they get kicked out. So they're aware, right? And so they scream the loudest before they die. And I was doing such a good job at watering these, I just call them sentient stress weeds, that they were running the show. Even though I knew where to get the peace, it's like I couldn't do it. And so I get out of bed at 2 a.m. and I'm about to do alcohol, pills, self-harm, maybe all three. And I look at my left thumb and I say, Tim, you can take one breath. Take one fucking breath. And I drove it into my chest and went, this is working, keep doing it. And I grabbed a second finger, drove it in my chest. All right, this is good, this is working. Let's get to 5. So finger by finger, breath by breath. And somewhere between breath 15 and 25, those stress weeds got kicked out. And the rest of my brain came online saying, Tim, thank fuck you kicked those guys out. This is working, don't stop. And I kind of realized that I put a little tear in the time-space continuum. Those 25 breaths stopped me going down the path of self-harm, drugs, alcohol, and put the mature version of me back in charge. And I realized you can know this stuff, but it does need to be guided, because breath it's the oldest habit we have, right? And to change it, a little bit of guidance is what's needed to get it to that medicinal state. Not everyone's going to stab themselves with a thumb and to get them to breathe. So I started making these stupid recordings that was specifically to turn your bed into a cloud, but also to turn your thinking mind off. And as much as it was my own stupid voice saying, hey, Tim, breathe in, breathe out, position yourself like this, having that on command made all the difference. And it just kept working, and I shared it with friends and it worked for them. And I'm like, if this can work in the darkest moments when I'm about to, destroy myself, how many other people are in that same situation that have actually chosen something else? And, if I was to lift up my shirt, you'd see it strapped because I've got a lot of chronic injuries from carrying just heavy stuff for too long. And I noticed that breath also dropped the pain scales on that. But I'd still wake up with a bit of pain, but I'm like, okay, well, there's breath to go to sleep with. Let's create some breath to wake up with. Instead of turning your bed into a cloud, let's try and turn it into a trampoline. And so in the mornings, I would make a different audio track, one that would activate the system, but also remove a lot of the stuck energy where when you're staying still for so long, energy sort of piles up in certain places. And if you massage those places, you're like, oh my gosh, that's really waking me up. And if you don't remove that stuck energy, that's when you often have to pour, dopamine over dysfunction. Shut up until I've had a coffee, energy drinks, extra food, all that sort of stuff. So I was finding these natural and immediate ways to connect. What I discovered was this, that our life is dependent on 2 golden 5-minute periods. The 5 minutes going to sleep, the 5 minutes waking up. Most people, and the world we currently live in, poison both. And they think it's normal. just like I did, right? And I noticed that if I lost the first 5 minutes of the day, I've lost the day. And veterans talk about negative eagles on the bedhead, negative thoughts ready to swoop in the second you start becoming conscious. So if I had like a stupid ass recording of something that told me to breathe in and out, connect to my physical body before I let that negative shit into my head, so stupid, but so powerful. And it just kept working. It kept working. And I started taking this on the road. I started doing workshops. I did one workshop out at Enoggera because there was a real problem with, I think there was a suicide out there, and I think there was a lot of people struggling, especially around their sleep. And of course, everyone was doing what they normally do. They were addressing the problems that the poor sleep was causing. They weren't actually addressing, improving the sleep, right? So I got out there and I do a workshop, and I get an email from a Louis Colonel the very next day who didn't attend. And there was a part of me, oh, geez, am I in trouble here? Mm-hmm. But and the truth was, I withdrew from public life for 2 years after this email from a Louis Colonel. He said to me, Tim, I didn't attend, but I had all my corporals and sergeants saying that was the best workshop ever, and that was the first good night's sleep they had in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. This guy thought it was awesome. And I'm like, you know how much damage 5 years of poor sleep can cause? Why didn't you get me out 5 years ago? How easy was it to fix? All right, this is so easy to fix once you know how. But what he said next withdrew me from public life because I realized I was failing. He said, Tim, it was good when you're there, but what have you got when you're not there? I'm like, shit, I've just failed my P test. I'm not permanent. And I said, okay, well, we've got to create something that if people want to do this in their own time, they can access this, because the powerful thing in this scenario isn't me, it's your breath. And as much as I don't like phones, everyone's got them. And so I spent tens of thousands of dollars, and 2 years later, I created the Breathwork in Bed app, made for people that are struggling to sleep. And that was my attempt at permanency. And there's so much information out there around sleep, and people forget that when people are tired because they've already got enough on their plate, all right? And when someone's tired, they just want to say, look, here's what I want, just take care of it for me, all right? So the genius part about what we created was all you need to do is tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and then it just falls out of your phone automatically exactly when you need it. So it's like I wanted to create the Uber Eats of breathwork. Yeah. And if I knew if Uber Eats was being delivered to my house, like good quality food, I'd probably eat more good quality food. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of what I was attempting to do, with the Breathwork in Bed app. Just set it, and then it appears exactly.
Yeah, it's got to be easy, right? Because like you said, you're tired, you've done enough. Oh fuck, I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to do any work to go to sleep. What you're saying brings a lot of truths and kind of fills in a lot of gaps with stuff that I used to teach and run seminars on, which was pain management. I used to run seminars for all the soldiers that were downgraded or transitioning at the Soldier Recovery Centre on pain. A lot of people that are probably watching know me from there. And one of the big things that I would talk about is that pain isn't always because of your injuries. Like, why would your pain be okay today but really bad tomorrow when your injury hasn't changed at all? And that comes down to, how stressed you are. Was traffic bad? Did you have a fight with your missus before work or husband? Is it a cloudy day? Is it raining? Do you feel sort of down? And all of this comes down to stress, cortisol. Did you drink last night? Did you have a shit sleep? Which was a big one. But yeah, that kind of fills in a lot of that gap of when you wake up and the first thing you do is start ruminating on your stress and anxiety and depression and whatever it might be, thinking about that fight you had with the missus last night. Oh, fuck, I have to see her again this morning. I took missus because I'm a dude. Girls get upset sometimes that I don't mention them. Your partner, if you had a fight with your partner. But yeah, that makes so much sense that if you remove those feelings of stress and anxiety, that the pain would be lessened.
Yeah, and my dyslexic pattern recognition, trying to make it as simple as possible and accessible as possible, is our life is largely impacted by those 2 5-minute periods. And if you can put the good stuff in those 5 minutes going to sleep, 5 minutes waking up, I just think in many ways there's no choice. Like if I don't choose to put good stuff in there, I got so much bad stuff ready to dive in and take my head over, and it's so good of just talking me out of everything, So it's with great joy I get a lot of, obviously my people are veterans and first responders, but this is, everyone's human, right?
Very
so
nice.
I have a lot of others, but I've got a lot of US veterans right now. Some of them are saying I'm straight up an insomniac, but now I'm actually sleeping for the first time ever. And the good thing is some of these guys got those watches that monitor stuff so they can show the hard data on just those simple things. And I don't want to blow my own chain here, but I lost 6 years of my life to pills when I told a doctor I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the Lone Ranger there. Okay, I know I'm not the Lone Ranger. No one told me that, guess what? Something inside your own rib cage can make the biggest difference. And they're so easy to throw. Still good?
Okay. Go on, headphones off.
Well, no, I just because this thing was rubbing and it kept on sort of making a distracting noise. So I didn't want to, because I was dancing with the cord, like, how do I hold this? You got to be. Harley's got to notice you're distracted. So yeah, no one's talking, and I will say this: I'm not anti-pill. Sometimes it's a lesser of two evils, but what no one talks about is there are natural and immediate alternatives that are closer than you know. But also, no one told me the cost of taking these pills. They're like a short-term energy loan that you have to pay back with interest the next week, and especially no one told me how hard it is to come off these things. I never knew, Harley, that a second could feel like a minute, because when this shit's leaving your system, holy crap, like the SSRIs, which I was taking heavily, it was like lightning was going through the tip of my head to my toes and back and all this sort of stuff. And like a second felt like a minute, an hour felt like a goddamn day. And I actually had to physically remove myself, go completely off grid. So I'm like, if I destroy something, it's going to be me, no one else,
I've heard that analogy before, actually, the lightning.
I'm cautious to say this because there are people out there on pills, and there is a proper way to do this. To come off these SSRIs, it's supposed to be at least a 6-month process.
Yeah, down titrate.
Yeah, and the process of having a full dose and a 3/4 dose for as long as you need to feel that normal, and then a full dose and a half dose, and these sorts of things. There's a proper way to do it. I would never ever recommend going cold turkey,
Which is what most veterans do.
Yeah. No, I'm going to make a big decision and make it do it. So, but this is where natural alternatives. No one's talking about, and the only reason I gravitate to breathwork is because it's so goddamn accessible, and it's so potent. I have this party trick where I can show people how to completely relax their body in less than 3 breaths. And I can confidently recommend it because the breath outranks the thinking mind in the way that if you think of us as human beings, how we've evolved over time, we developed these bodies and eventually we started thinking and speaking. We started putting paintings on rock walls. But before we were speaking and thinking, our nervous system was interacting with the external world. We were breathing, we were fighting, we were dancing, we're probably even singing, right? All these things that we were doing before we were speaking and thinking, right? And this is the thing where a lot of psychologists, they study really hard, but no one tells them that the trauma goes down deeper into the nervous system than the words can reach. So that's why the really evolved psychologists always have some sort of body integrated somatic work where you actually get to access the deep ancient wiring, not just blah, blah, blahing. So that's, my work sort of sits in the intersection of, nervous system and conscious regulation of your breath.
Let me ask, I know a lot of, especially with things like diet and exercise, that people look at like athletes and stuff, for example, and go, oh, it's easy for them because they're disciplined and whatever. And you feel like if you have a bad day and you have a blowout on Macca's or you drink alcohol, then you've derailed it and fuck it, I'll just go back to my old ways. Is it the same sort of thing with like, a cheat day where you might go out and have a glass of wine and a good dinner and not do the breath work? Or do you not drink alcohol at all?
I'm a big fan of cheat days.
Yeah.
Like if we do things and we feel like we're depriving ourselves, that'll just accumulate to a certain point where you just go, I'm just going to do it and pull the lever and go crazy. So big fan of cheat days. So on your cheat days, like fully get into it. All right. Okay, I'm just going to share with what works for me. All right. So I would give myself permission when I was establishing any new habit to one day of cheat day where I'd fully get into it. And you know what? I would realize soon enough why I chose not to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there was an association that if I drank that alcohol, if I ate that food, if I did this sort of thing, somehow that would make me feel better.
It doesn't.
You know what? And I'm dumb enough to have that. I had to relearn that lesson, and you'd eat all this crap food and you're like, that's why I'm not doing this, but that's okay. I'm going to sit with this. And each time I'd have a cheat day, each of the time I would need less of that to feel like I've scratched that itch. And my body would respond in a way that, okay, Tim, you've enjoyed that, but you have to sit with the cost of that. So any inflammatory foods, back pain through the roof, really hard to get out of bed. So it's not so much what we have to give up, it's the person we want to be. And the person we want to be needs a certain amount of energy to live at. Okay, now think about energies like money, how you invest, it's how you get it back. And, you, Harley, everyone listening has a unique energy signature. The way you're made is very unique, meaning that there's things that you do that you invest energy into that you get a massive return that's unique to you. No one else will see that about you. Only you see that. And you have to see it before anyone else because no one's going to do this for you. You've got to create your own energetic investment portfolio. Okay, and it's usually something physical, usually something that you enjoy doing, and the thing that you invest, say $10 in, that you get $1,000 back, and the goal of all this is to be an energetic millionaire. All right, and because life occurs very differently when you're walking down the street with $1 million in your back pocket than if you're only got 20 cents. Because if we don't have enough, I've been that guy that has tried to protect it, always scanning for threats because I don't want anyone to take from me. And I've been that guy when, someone took 10 cents, which is nothing. But if I've only got 20 cents, that's huge. And I'll spend years trying to revenge that shit, completely forgetting the fact that I could be an energetic millionaire the next day. So the goal here for me is understanding that once to thine own self be true, once you know your own energetic investment, you know that no matter what gets taken, you can put it back in. You're in touch with something so much greater than that which can take from you. Because we've all been taken from, sometimes we've been betrayed. And so that can really have people stuck in a particular place if they don't know that if they invest in themselves, get that return, keep investing in themselves instead of giving their energy away to others that have hurt them, then things start to shift. And then you start seeing it's not so much that I'm not letting myself have a cream puff, but if I'm free to have a cream puff, like I'm going to give myself one cheat day a week. If I want to have that cream puff, I will. But the fact that I'm giving myself that permission, but also having the conversation around, okay, well, I want to live this particular way. The problem, though, is in the world we currently live in, there's a lot of people talking about how to live a certain way. And I call that the energetic superhighway. And people talk about this energetic superhighway that you need to live on, right? And there's a part of me that does know I need to do certain things. And I'll even pay money to go to a seminar to hear that guy talk, right? But what no one's doing is building on-ramps onto that lifestyle that people really want. And I found that to break someone's isolation, to improve their sleep, that is some of the best on-ramps for them to make choices, for them to be on that energetic superhighway, energetic millionaire type path. So to even start that self-inquiry, self-investment process, imagine if all you had to do was work on the 5 minutes going to sleep, 5 minutes waking up. That's the, as far as I see it, the most accessible start point for people to start that, getting enough capital to reinvest in themselves.
Which one do you think's more important? If someone just start with just one of them?
I would say getting to sleep, because from what I've seen, their sleep cycles, the deeper you sleep, the more your body cleans itself out. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'll use the example. Have you ever had a toilet that backed up?
Yeah.
All right. It's disgusting. Okay. Well, our brain needs to poop, right? But it's sitting in this blood-brain barrier on its own because it creates a lot of energy. It works hard for us, but it's got to poop, right? And if we're not sleeping properly, if we're not getting at least 6 to 8 hours quality sleep, then the spinal fluid isn't coming up through your spine and then circulating inside your skull around the blood-brain barrier and pulling out all that poop. Okay, so if you're not sleeping properly, you've got a septic system that's backing up in your head, and people wonder why they wake up feeling crappy. Okay, and then that crappy feeling follows you around for the day. And then our economy goes, great, there's a fatigued person. They have to buy stuff now. They have to buy that coffee. They have to buy that energy drink. They have to buy this extra food because ghrelin is a hormone that comes about when you're not sleeping properly, and it makes you eat so much more. Leptin, that sense of satisfaction, is increased when you do sleep properly. So this is where a lot of the daytime stresses get alleviated with proper sleep, proper brain functioning. The real you comes out. That's not living in a house with a backed up septic. And keep that image in mind, because it's life changes really quickly when you clean up that shit that's been living in your head. So breathwork, going to sleep in that 5 minutes, that would be the most powerful thing to do if you were to pick one.
Yeah. Sleep is becoming a real hot topic. Hey, was it Chris someone, Why We Sleep, that book, which obviously talks about a lot of that stuff, and later in the cycles of REM sleep when they get longer towards the end of the night. But if you've got too much cortisol and stuff, on your phone or whatever before bed, you're not getting to those later cycles that are doing the most work for you. So yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Well, you just said one of the biggest words in sleep. All right. And I'm cautious here because, like I said, fatigued people don't want to hear 1,000 things. They just want one thing they can do and it'll work. And that's why I'm like, okay, forget everything else, just do your breath work, right? But people often ask me, what's the best thing I can do for my sleeping habits, outside of breath work? And I'm like, the easiest one is actually what you do first thing in the morning. There's a frequency of light that comes out of the sun when it's just coming over the horizon. Now, if you don't have any glass in front of your eyes, if you've got naked eyes in that frequency of light, it goes through your retina and hits a part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that is the thing that controls all your internal clocks, all your circadian rhythms. And it gets them in sync. And if you've ever had the experience of trying to go to sleep at night and there's a part of your head still running around, that part of you is not in sync. And before we went on, missions in the Special Forces, everyone would get their, usually a G-Shock watch, to the second or in sync with the commanding officer. Because if someone was 30 seconds out, that would make a massive impact, to the mission. But what's more, that particular frequency of light, there's color changes. It goes from, orange to red to yellow. And it's very safe to stare at the sun while it's still comfortable, maybe a finger or two off the horizon, right? And that sequence of colors is like nature's antidepressant. Okay, that sequence of colors. And guess what? That sequence of colors is in reverse at sunset. So it produces melatonin. It gives you the sense of it's time to go inside the cave, rest, digest, connect to loved ones. But in the morning, there's something else that happens, and I love nerding out on this. So bear with me here. Getting as much of your skin exposed to the sunlight as possible is beyond healthy. Every one of your mitochondria, which is your energy factories, is thanking you for this. And here's a bit of knowledge I only discovered recently, but it blew my mind. And that was, Harley, you're going to love this. All right, so water comes in three forms, right? Liquid, solid, ice, gas, steam. They've discovered a fourth phase of water. It's a hexagonally shaped molecule that stacks up against each other, and it helps nutrients cross membranes, and also acts as a conductor. And our body produces it only when our skin is exposed to sunlight.
Everyone's hiding from the sun.
Well, I think the pendulum kind of went from one extreme to the other. Like in the 70s and 80s, you get sunburn every weekend, that's normal, right? And then it went like it's evil, it's wrong, you should stay away from it. But no, healthy sunlight, and let me just caveat, healthy sunlight is something they call azimuth light. Azimuth light is any time your shadow is longer than you.
Oh.
Okay, so when you have to be mindful of when it's not dangerous, but you just have to be mindful with the amount of exposure you have when the shadow's shorter than you. But if your shadow's longer than you, you want to get that on your skin. You want to expose as much of your skin to the light, so your mitochondria can get all those frequency of light. It can go through your retina. It can create that fourth phase water. And if you really want to jack up on the fourth phase water, I really recommend this. Nature has forms of fourth phase water in cucumbers, in coconut water, in chia seeds. So that gel substance that sits around chia seeds, that's fourth phase water. So if you want to have an easy health hack before you get your morning sun, the night before have your coconut water, chuck some chia seeds in it. Then in the morning before you go into the sun, smash a cup or two of that, and then do that breath work to that sunrise as your skin's getting exposed. And this is like free energy. All right. And it's on tap. If we saw a sign saying free money, would be naturally suspicious, right? But if there was real money there, people would go, this is awesome. But here's nature saying, if you do these things, you will get this return, and you won't need to look for it outside of you. Because ignorance of this sort of stuff will not protect us from the predators out there saying, hey, you're not sleeping, or here's a product that'll solve it. People are spending $8,000 to $10,000 on a goddamn mattress. Breathwork turned any surface I was on in Afghanistan into a cloud. And this is where people, it comes down to conversations like this, Harley, because it's once you know this stuff, you've got the power. There's no resales. You don't need to listen to me again once you know this stuff. I'm not going to charge people here $30 a month to sit in the sun and do breath. I'm just saying, once you have this knowledge and you're connected to this stuff, then this is where we get to increase the total sum game, where everybody's getting more for more.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, the problem with all of the information coming out about this sort of stuff, like I know Andrew Huberman has his 8 steps to a healthy life or whatever, and, wake up in the morning, get sun on your skin, look at the sunrise, hold off on your caffeine intake, do all these sorts of things, which, I've seen documentaries where people do it for a month and they feel like the best they've ever felt, and then they get all their friends onto it and stuff. But then people that are time poor, or what if you live in the UK and you don't have any sun until 10 a.m. and there's cloud cover all day? It's like, Well, yeah, that's great if you have that perfect environment and you have the time and you don't have kids to look after when you get out of bed, and if you can walk outside for 30 minutes and enjoy your sun and do all these sort of things. But it's too hard, so fuck it.
Yeah.
I won't do anything. I'll just continue my dopamine over dysfunction, as you say, and scroll my phone before I go to bed, and then grab my phone as soon as I wake up and hit my vape and just crack on. So it's but like you said, just making those small steps, having conversations like this where you go, all right, there are little things I can do. 5 minutes. Who can't afford 5 minutes? And let's give that a go and see if it makes a difference.
Well, I like that you spoke to that, because you're right. People do disconnect when they think, oh, that's just for the hippies. I don't have time for that, right? But you have to remember how I said your mind's like a garden, whatever you water grows. And so when a state gets challenged, that state will justify itself. So if I'm in the state of stress, cortisol, even though it's not really working, if someone says, I'll go outside and breathe, I'll automatically defend my position. I don't have time for that. I can't do that. Right. So, but this is where you have to understand that state of mind is protecting itself. So if you can give them something easy, that's an easy win where, I don't have much money, but look, invest $2 here and you get $20 back. Well, how about that? I was working all day to get $20, but I put $2 into that and I got that back. That's pretty cool, man. And then when you can get those small wins with a massive change state, it's only then when they've got that energy capital, then they can start tipping into all these other things. Because why are we working? So I can have certain things that'll give me a certain state where I can feel good within myself, right? If we can give that to ourselves before we leave the door, well, we're not just going to have a better day. It's going to be more of a victory lap than I'm not enough, so I need to do this. And this is what I was talking to earlier. There's so many people out there going, here's the energetic superhighway. You need to be up here. Then people that are fatigued going, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
All right. And then they defend themselves and they're really hard to reach. So building those on-ramps so people can have those small wins, turn a small investment into a decent return. And even if they're just, doing that 5 minutes thing, and it usually doesn't stay at that, but giving them access where they can have that small win, and then with more energy, they've got more options. And I think if you're a healer, you need to be thinking about the people you're serving, not just the great idea you have. Yeah,
for sure. And that talk about exponential growth, and once you have more energy, then you want to make more better decisions. It's so true. Like obviously I've never done the breathwork sort of stuff, but just knowing in myself when I became a Muay Thai fighter, I stopped drinking for almost 2 years because I knew it would affect my training. So, but that didn't start off like I'm going to stop drinking and I'm going to train and I'm going to feel great. It was like I'd reduce my drinking and then I'd go out and then I'm like, oh fuck, now this is affecting my training because I feel terrible if I've had drinks last night. So I'd do less and less until I got to a point where I'm just not going to drink at all. And then started to feel good. Like the more I run, the more I want to run, the more I train, the more I eat healthy. I felt great with my training when I had that chicken and broccoli fresh meal. So now I'm going to do that more. So each little step I took made me feel better and better and better, and made me want to do even more things to grow that, I guess, to get on that superhighway that you mentioned.
Well, you're talking about the dynamics of energy. Energy is never static. You're never holding ground. It's either connecting to more and then connecting to more and then connecting to more, or it's disconnecting from more, disconnecting from more, disconnecting from more.
Yeah.
And your tipping point was the fact that you had a performance factor in there. You had an idea of this is how I want to perform. But imagine people living in a world where nothing is physically expected of you. Yeah, you don't even have to. The new adventure sport is ordering Uber Eats. Like, you're fucking kidding me?
All I've got to do is get to the office, be present, not really do anything.
So, and health and fitness isn't health and fitness. It's health and beauty. Big difference. And if you're going to the gym because you want a particular state, meaning you don't like the state you're in, every single physical action you take in that gym is you saying, oh, I don't like my butt. I don't like my butt. I can't love myself as I am. And so when I talk about energetic states, think state, don't think shape. Because, one day maybe you might get a particular shape, but if you invest wisely in your own body, you can have the state immediately. You can turn that $2 into $200. And that is the switch that a lot of people don't get to, because if you think about the idea that we are what we marinate in, and we're in a world where there is no physical expectation of our body. So the only way to sort of motivate people is saying, you can't be happy the way you are. Look at your ugly elbows. Just pay me money and I'll fix those ugly elbows. I know everyone's talking about them. Everyone's laughing. You didn't know, it's not your fault, but just give me your money and I'll fix it for you. Right. So in warfare, you attack someone's center of gravity. And our center of gravity is our sense of self-worth. So if someone can attack our sense of self-worth, then they can get us to spend money. And it's quite easy to pull money out of people, but it's quite an art form to make a real difference. And the only way I've been able to do that consistently is to show people how to connect to that which is really powerful. And it's not a particular person, because our energy is not enough for two people. And then show them how to do it easily and effortlessly, consistently. And what I've learned is it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. And you don't have to, so honestly, you don't have to work out much or do much. You just got to do it regularly, right? The hard conversation happens, Harley, when if we don't make this choice, the choice gets made for us. If we don't choose to connect to the energy inside of us, powerful connections, and connect outside of us, then we often disconnect from ourselves because we're so focused out there that my sense of self-worth is connected to the car, the income, the relationship, the stuff. And that's when they have us. Because I've always wondered, why is sleep so universally accepted that it, sleep when you're dead, shut up until you've had a coffee. Why are we collectively thinking that sleep is okay? People are talking about it, but no one's actually going, hey, this is actually 90% of it. And the best answer I could come is that we willingly exhaust ourselves because our sense of self-worth is attached to something outside of us. And until we get that thing, we will destroy this body because we're so focused out there that we disconnect from this body. And this body can be in such a state of fatigue, but this is so much more important to us. And it's happening unconsciously. It's like the marketers have us so well played that we don't even know it's happening.
That external validation crosses so many borders into different parts of your life, like relationships. Like I can't be happy unless I'm with somebody, which I see a lot. It's like you go from one relationship and for 20 years and then 2 weeks later you're with someone else. It's like, why don't you spend some time to yourself and get to know yourself? And it's like I can't settle or be happy in myself unless I have somebody else with me. It's like you need to find your inner peace and be happy to be in your own company, I think, before you should even be with somebody.
Well, that's a very powerful question. When's the last time we could feel good about ourselves without taking anything?
Well,
without needing something outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
So whether it's in a relationship, whether it's with pills, drugs, alcohol, whether it's with stuff, when's the last time we could actually feel good about ourselves just because it's us?
Yeah.
Because I tell you, everything we've been taught about feeling good is completely backwards. We've been indoctrinated to think that our sense of self-worth is out there, that there's nothing valuable inside of you because it's invisible, right? We're a very visual group of humans. So if we don't see it, it doesn't exist. And so to actually look inside yourself, it's quite challenging, but you have to see it before anyone else. And the good news is it doesn't matter how much you have. It's not how much you have, it's what you invested in. And then you keep investing in the things that build that energetic portfolio. Otherwise, we're always going to be looking for it, in the relationship, in the car, in the status, in the affirmation.
Yeah. And then when those things break down, then we lose that feeling of value. self-worth, because it's all externally based.
Yeah.
The great trap.
Now, I'm really looking forward to showing you my little party trick on how to relax the body and mind in less than 3 breaths.
So, show me your goodness.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to do a breathwork technique. The lungs heard me coming. Tim's in the house. So all these things, Harley, everything is an invitation, and I like to set people up powerfully for this by asking permission, for this invitation, for this state change. And I do this because breath is so powerful that when we welcome it in, it can actually reach all those parts that it's there to help and heal, right? And the technique I'm going to show you is a Tim Thomas original. I didn't learn this anywhere. This is something I just discovered while I was on the roof doing my morning breath work, and it just worked. And it's really good to reconnect back into your body. And as we do this initially, my request is people, if they're doing it at home, do it in a safe place. Don't be driving. Don't be cutting up carrots. You want to be seated in a chair, at least something that can support you, and so you can really just connect to your lungs. So the first question, Harley and those listening, do you give permission to your very own lungs to make your physical body and every cell in it feel really, really good?
Yes.
Awesome. That was easy. Harley, do you give permission to your very own lungs to make your conscious thinking mind feel really, really good?
Yes.
Perfect. Last one. Harley and those people listening, do you give permission to your very own breath to make every part of your unconscious mind feel really, really good?
Yes.
Fantastic. All done. So all we're going to do now, and this is going to be so simple, I'll be with you the whole time, and that is just simply breathe in, but then breathe in more. Give that a try.
Does it matter if it's nose or mouth?
Well, at this point, no, but ideally nose. If you're asking, nose, yeah. So just breathe in. In, more. Now just hold it and wriggle your shoulders, wriggle your spine, wriggle. And if you're brave enough, let out a really loud sigh. Out. Okay. How's the body feeling, Harley?
Full of air. Kind of get that weird feeling when you don't, because we don't use all of our lung capacity.
No,
right?
we don't. And did you notice that when you breathed in more, this top third of your lungs opened up a little bit more?
Yeah, you can feel it up through here. Yeah.
Okay, that's no small thing. And for the sake of giving it a name, where most people breathe in and out is in this shallow breath here. Okay, we'll call that your primary, and for the sake of giving it a name, we'll call this area up the top third your secondary. So there's your primary breathing, and then there's your secondary breathing. So what I'm going to show you now, and this is a great joy for me, I love showing people just how incredible their bodies are. We all own them, but we just don't know what they do. And a lot of people don't know, Harley, that in their 2 fingers and thumbs, they have a power button that will help inflate their secondary inhale. Okay, so all I'm going to get you to do now is exhale, breathe in, but when it comes to your secondary, when it comes to this top third, I want you to pinch those power buttons and kind of look up. Okay, so feel that pinch, have them down by your side, and then we're going to blow it out, and then halfway through, we're going to pinch those power buttons and look at the ceiling. Cool?
As we blow it out or as we breathe in?
So as we're gonna, I'll give you a little demonstration. We're gonna blow it out, and then breathe in. Halfway through, we'll pinch the power buttons and look up. Hold it and give it another little wriggle. All right. Okay. So blow it out, shake it out. Blow it out, shake it out. Out. Shake your body as you blow it out. Good. And then start breathing in through your nose, halfway through, hit those power buttons, look up, look up, look up, look up, in. Now hold that and just wriggle your shoulders and stretch like you're in bed. You're just wriggling it. Feel that chest opening up. Feel that chest opening. Feel it opening like a flower. Feel the warmth of the sun coming in. And when you're ready, let out a really big sigh. Out, 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 out. Let the chair take your weight. Let the chair take your weight. All right, and don't rush this feeling because this is your energy. This is your sovereign energy. You did that for you. I did not do this for you. Okay, we're in the same room right now, and if anyone's listening doing this, you did that for you. And just feel what it is to have your sovereign energy circulating inside your system. And right now, we are literally just dipping a toe in the shallow end of a very deep pool. I'm going to walk you a little bit deeper so you can get more of an experience of all those things that your lungs can benefit. Body, mind, spirit. So this time, Harley, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to double the speed of the inhale. So when I used to fight, my coach used to say, before you do a combination, Tim, do a big snort through your nose, because behind our nose we have sinuses. And according to him, when you sucked air in rapidly over the sinuses, it circumnavigated the lungs and went straight into your brain. Now, whether that was based in science or not, I don't know, but it worked in combat. And breathing through your nose unlocks a particular kind of gas. And this particular kind of gas doesn't get produced when you mouth breathe. This particular kind of gas that is produced from nasal breathing, if you went to a chemist and you said, I want something that improves my mood, improves my cardiac function, improves my recovery, improves my sleep, improves my sexual function, and improves my brain function, how much would you be paying for that, for all those things from the...
Hopefully it's on DVA.
Touche. Yes, our budget would not necessarily allow for that kind of expenditure. But the thing is, our nose produces something that does that. It's called nitric oxide. And for all the fellas out there, nitric oxide was what they used to give to athletes to help them perform better. But then they also noticed there was another performance standard that happened, and they reported that. And now Viagra, a large ingredient is nitric oxide. So nasal breathing, it's a vasodilator. It allows our system to function optimally, and it's free medicine. Nose breathing will do that for you, not mouth breathing. So this time we are going to do just what we did, blow it out, shake it out, but we're going to rapidly inhale through the nose, like we're trying to suck air over our nose straight into our brain as we look up. Did you need a demo?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to blow it out, shake it out, out, and you'll be surprised how much you can blow out. Wait for it. Blow it out, and then when you're ready, we're going to hit those power buttons, and then we're going to slowly stretch and wriggle, stretch and wriggle, stretch and wriggle, stretch and wriggle, stretch and wriggle. And when you feel that sigh, like you can't stop that, just sigh into your hand. Yeah, allow yourself to go into your hand to get it all out. Cool.
All right. Is that if you need to, that last bit, or?
Well, that last bit, some people feel a bit funny making noise out loud, but whatever at this point, whatever works for you. Okay.
So it's just doing the nasal breathe faster.
Yeah. So inhale twice as fast. All right. So blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out, out. And when you're all the way out,
punch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shake. And then open. Good. Now slowly wriggle. Feel that opening. Feel that tension pushing up. Feel that sigh building. Building. And when you can't stop it, let out a really big sigh. just let that sovereign energy go through your system. Let the chair support you. It was built to hold you. It will hold you. Feel those muscles touching the chair.
Kind of feels like almost a bit euphoric, eh? You feel a bit like...
Yeah, teeth start showing when people start breathing correctly. We start taking on what I call the nature of air. And that's no small thing. So this is just my dyslexic Tim language. All elements have a certain nature, and air has a certain nature. Air can't be held. I do not defy anyone to hold air, all right? And that's air's nature. It's kind of obvious, right? But when we breathe fully, we take on the nature of air. Air doesn't allow us to hold on to our physical tension. Air doesn't allow us to hold on to our mental tension. And like I said, we're still in the shallow end right now, but this sense of calm, peace, euphoria, do you know how many drugs on the market and off market there are to have you feel that? So this is no small thing, all right? And this is just potentially some people's very first full breath. Mm. And there's a whole lot of other reasons besides the nitric oxide, besides the nature of air, is that this top third, to me, that's where our energy levels sit. Because when I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders and something's burdening me, I'm hunched over. I'm compressing my top third. And in doing so, think of your body like we're an electrical circuit. We're a meat bag with electrical circuits running through us. And the brain's the generator, right? And we've got these cables running from our brain through our body. But these aren't like solid cables, like these cables. If I pinch them, they wouldn't do anything. Our electrical cables are like hose pipes. And if you step on the garden hose, there's less water running through. And so that's how our energy sort of works. And when we're hunched over, we're literally pinching off those garden hoses of energy that's feeding our system. So it's not just that you're getting more energy from breathing properly. Proper breath gives you proper structural alignment. Proper structural alignment allows us to be fully energized as opposed to blocking our energy. It removes the blockages. Mm. So this is the potent thing about breath work is the breath gives us proper alignment, and there's all these, it even affects hormone levels, having proper alignment within your own body. So you ready to take this to the next level?
Sure.
All right. So before we do this one, all I want you to do is breathe in and just kind of make a yawning sound into your hand, like you're trying to stop the air coming out of your mouth with your hand. So like you're trying to make a sound, but you're stopping it with your hand. Let's just try that. So breathe in and go. And so, yeah, you feel the air resisting. I know you got a beard on, so it's a little some more porous, right? But just feel that resistance. Okay,
yeah.
Get that feel.
The vibration.
Yeah, cool. All right. So what we're going to do now is you can use your hand, but in the break we got towels, right? So on this occasion, what we're going to do is grab our towel, and this can be done with a towel or a hand. If I'm working with high school students, I'll usually get the students to turn up with towels, but this is a really fun one, is we're going to breathe in, and as we breathe in, we are going to wriggle up a yawn, okay? So as we're breathing in, we're going to wriggle up. It's going to feel like yawn juice. Focus on yawn juice coming up your neck, and when you can't stop that yawn, grab your towel and just yawn as loudly as you can. Or, the idea is to resist that, the air coming out so you can make that sound longer. All right? So we're going to do exactly what we did. Rapid inhale with the power buttons. Wriggle, 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 and wriggle up what would be considered, I call it yawn juice. And when you can't stop that yawn, really open the jaw and let out that yawn as loud as you can. Cool?
What if you don't get a yawn?
Well, Fake one.
Near enough's good enough.
All right. So, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out, 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 out. And when you're all the way out, we power up and face the roof, breathing through your nose rapidly. Open. Now wriggle that yawn up. Like you're in bed, you're wriggling up a yawn, wriggle up a yawn. Feel that yawn juice coming out. Feel that stretching. And when you cannot stop that yawn, grab that towel and out.
Oh, I think I put a rib out. I don't think my chest has ever opened that far.
Well, let's just breathe through our nose for a second.
Put some intercostal muscles.
You've changed. But just take a few breaths of air and notice how there's so much more space. So that's no accident. That is no accident. And you might even be feeling a bit warmer.
Yeah, feel warm, yeah.
And there's no air conditioning in here. I'm just going to take my shirt off.
There is aircon.
There is? Okay. Because I mean, breath does warm you up, so I'm just cooling down a bit.
Definitely feel a bit more sweaty. It's only 24 there.
So, so right now as you breathe, you just feel like you've got so much more space because you've just accessed this range of muscle groups that most people don't even know is there.
Yeah, I feel like my breath's deeper without trying.
And, we were laughing, our teeth were showing. That's a pretty cool state to be in. All right? And I'll just speak to why yawning and making that sound sort of took things to the next level. So going off the idea that as humans, we naturally want to connect. That's what we naturally do, right? But what we seem to do also, and connection's not the hard thing. The hard thing is removing the things that block us because we tend to accumulate blockages as we go. All right, now our stress, our blockages are held in what's called our vagus nerve. Our vagus nerve controls our motor function as well as our stress regulation. So if you've had a stressful experience, that it gets locked in the vagus nerve and it shows up in a couple of different ways. You can often see it by the way people hold their body. You can often see it in the tension they have in their jaws. And at nighttime, bruxism, grinding of teeth, that's interesting because the vagus nerve has two big insertion points behind the jaw. All right, so when we yawn and we open that jaw, okay, it actually purges the vagus nerve. And making a sound, that's a frequency. And that sound frequency helps loosen up the blockages we have inside of us. So consider those people that are freaking out going, they're actually trying to remove the blockages. They're trying to self-regulate. And so if we can hit those points before if we can release that pressure before the kettle blows, then we're going to be ahead of the game. We're not just, okay, let's just stay in control one more day. If we can purge this, all right? So I'm going to have a little exercise because you did that one pretty well. Okay, you did that one pretty well, all right? I'm going to show you a little exercise I do with people because you can talk about things, right? But until you get it out of your system, words are somewhat ineffective. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do exactly what we did. All right? We're going to blow it out, shake it out, and when we're all the way out, we're going to hold until we think of something mildly, ever so mildly annoying. All right? An annoying thought. And when we think of that thing that's mildly annoying, I want you to snort rapidly through your nose like you're trying to snort it out the back of your head, literally like trying to snort it out your head. And then we're going to wriggle any of that stuck energy that's associated with that mildly annoying thought, wriggle it to the surface, wriggle it to the surface, wriggle it to the surface. And when you feel that thing that's stuck is right in your jaw and you're ready to yawn it out as loud as possible, and really purge it out. Open that jaw, purge it out. And sometimes when you get it out, you go, you can, some people even make an extra couple of breaths noises through it. You know what I mean? And we'll see how we go with that. You ready for me? Did you want a little demonstration, or you feel like you're ready to go?
Feel like I get it. Just trying to think of something annoying.
And remember, mildly annoying. We're not going full level. This is just a fun little activity to see how breath and body movements can remove the blockages inside of you to allow you more space inside yourself, and other people pick up on it pretty quickly too. Like, you can hang out with people that you get a sense that, they've got space inside of themselves for people to be around, and I feel pretty good around this. So imagine, as much as this could go under the level of just silly stuff, imagine if all you had to do to connect with people you care about most is a few little breathing, moving activities. Okay, for you to have the most amazing connection with others. If you had to do this one silly thing, and trust me when I say I was the guy that had pills, not just in the medicine cabinet, but by the bed, in the fruit bowl, in my car, in my wallet, everywhere, to allow me to maintain a state, to remove blockages. I didn't know this sort of stuff. So that's why I'm quite willing to, make a fool of myself doing these things to give people options, that are natural and immediate. You feeling me?
Do you feel like a bit of a goose?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll put all the video on you.
That's right. Can't show the real thing. Got to play the grey man. And I get this, like you're a guy that is normally a little inverted. So to put this out there, I want to acknowledge this. But consider this: how many people out there are up against blocked energy and they're having trouble connecting to themselves and connecting to others? And give it a real number, my man. Like, I would say a good couple of million to your left and to your right.
Yeah, millions for sure.
Yeah. And if all we had to do was do this silly thing that fucking works to make it accessible to others, would we do it? Like that's how I play. It's not just us. If it was just me, I'd I could justify anything. But if we're going to play a bigger game, we have to be the ones willing to cop the potential ridicule because we're doing something different. Or at least be willing to be the first ones to step across that line, and then all of a sudden everyone does it and it becomes normal. We have to be the ones to normalize this stuff before it becomes mainstream, man.
You sold out, man.
Used to be about the podcast. Try this Arabica Gold, fresh from the Himalayas. All right, so you got your towel ready?
Yep.
And again, this can be done with your own hand, but best done with a towel because, if you want to make a bit of noise, towels are really good to tampen the noise, okay, and really jam it in there, okay? I'll reach across and give you a hand. He knows too much. All right. So we're going to blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out. And when you're all the way out, we're going to hold. We're going to hold. And when we think of something mildly annoying, then we target that thought with our inhale through our nose and try and blow it out the top of our head. Good. Now wriggle your body. Wriggle that stuff up to the surface. Feel that yawn juice coming up. Feel that yawn juice coming up the side of your neck. Feel it pulling up. Wriggle it to the surface. Wriggle it to the surface. You do not want it in you anymore. Wriggle it out. Wriggle it out when you're ready.
Oh, man, I'm nearly blacked out.
This is why we do this seated or laying down. You do not want to be cutting up carrots.
Standing on the top of the staircase.
Yeah. And, we naturally started laughing. We naturally started making fun of things. This is how humans are supposed to be, And if I was to ask you that mildly annoying thought, is it anywhere in your system still?
It was hard to think about. I was just thinking that the dog annoying me when I'm trying to relax.
Yeah.
See if he does this afternoon.
Well, and for those people who have been watching, let's have a look at Harley's face right now.
Yeah, I feel pretty relaxed.
I mean, I'm only highlighting that because as someone who lost 6 years of his life to pills, to get that state of reconnection, and that was just pouring dopamine over the blockages, something like this, actually removing the blockages at will, when I want it, whenever I want it. And so the discrete version of this, like when I'm in public, being a breathwork person doesn't mean that things don't annoy me. And good energy levels never mean that you're not low or you're not off-center or you don't act immature. Good energy levels mean that when you are off-centered, you can catch yourself. You can return to your mature version of you in far less time. You do go low, but you're not low for as long and you're not as destructive. So that's good energy level. It's never just like get to a mountaintop and stay there. It's just how rapidly you get back to center. And this little breathwork thing, I'll just let people know that in public, when things off-center me, when things annoy me, I will discreetly have my little pinch buttons there and pinch them and gently wriggle it discreetly and then,
Not homicidal.
Yeah. This guy's purring next to me.
You'll live to see another day.
Yeah, so just a very easy takeaway, like without, when I'm working with high school students, they love that because then with the high school students, I'll get them to go low, I'll get them to go medium, and then I'll get them to go like really high. And it's funny how those different frequencies unlock different parts of a person, right? And again, it's not something I do in public. The discrete version is what I use, that little pinch of the finger and return to my breath. Because if in the past I didn't have that little clearance thing, if I didn't have that ability to plug back into where the power is, then for whatever reason, at the end of the day, I would try and find balance by pouring alcohol on it. I didn't know why I had to drink half a carton of grog before I spoke to my then wife. So to have this little return to self breath can really change a lot. In the amount that we feel that we're carrying, the amount that it's being, and now that when I kick around in public, I'm looking for things that annoy me because that then shows me the power of, these little things. So I encourage people to play with that,
Go when you're driving if you're starting to get frustrated with traffic or something.
And obviously, you do this, the discrete version, safely. You can do the full-on version when you're supported in a safe one, making a noise into your towel. In fact, the reason this is a Tim Thomas original is because after I used to go into supermarkets, I'd put a silicone pillow in my car that I would scream into because I didn't know why I had all this charge in my system and screaming would kind of balance me out. And I realized that's my body creating a frequency that matched the stuck energy in my system. And, that is a type of breath work, as dramatic as it is. But, if I could tap into my own breath before it gets to that explosion point, then, everything just works a whole lot better. Yeah.
Can you do those long breath holds like Wim Hof?
Yeah, look, the most I've held my breath for underwater is about 5 minutes.
Oh, shit.
I do a lot of spearfishing, so there's always, it's quite nice. And in fact, a very successful veteran recovery program was a freediving program. Oh. And again, a fun little fact about our own bodies, and if you're listening, this is a game changer. Between our eyeballs, between our eyebrows, we have a little starfish-shaped gland which triggers our mammalian dive reflex. Super, super powerful. And I use this in my veteran recovery workshops because once this thing senses you're underwater, it goes, oh, the body's underwater, we need to go into survival mode. And so it pulls all your blood automatically. You don't have to do anything other than put your face in water, ideally cold water, right? And the blood gets pulled to your core. Your heart rate slows down. You hear it going douche, 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 and then douche, douche. So a fun little party trick I have is I'll put my face into the esky and I'll have, a heart rate watch on, and they'll watch my heart rate go from 80 down to 40. And that's no drugs. That's just with the mammalian dive reflex. And here's the funny thing about your brain. These veterans would say, for the first time in forever, it's like the noise just wasn't there. When this is underwater and you're in survival mode, your deep ancient wiring knows we do not need stress to survive. So it literally lobotomizes that. Isn't that a funny deep knowing? We don't need stress to survive, and it quietens the thinking mind. So breath is an element, or air is an element, water is an element. If you can combine those two elements and have your face in ideally cold water, that is another way to activate all these self-regulation systems.
That's why ice baths are such a big thing.
Well, yes, but you're not necessarily submerging your face in it. Okay, so you can get, here's a good thing. You don't need an expensive ice bath, as much as it's my favorite piece of equipment at home. You can get 70% of the ice bath benefit by just having a jug of cold water in your fridge and a bowl as big as your head. And in the morning, tip in the cold water, maybe some ice cubes if you want to work up to it. Take a few deep breaths, mush up your face, just sort of protect your eyes. You don't want to go into cold water with your eyes open. Sometimes that can be a bit stinky, but mush up your eyes, put your face in there and just hold in there. And if you've got a heart rate monitor, watch that because it'll go zoom, right? And you'll be surprised how long you can stay in there. And again, that is a super powerful home remedy that actually picks you up better than coffee. So the first thing I do in the morning is I'll get that bowl of cold water, put my face in it. And the mammalian dive reflex is really interesting because it's the only thing that balances out our two different nervous systems, our parasympathetic and our sympathetic, our fight or flight and our rest and digest. It brings them into balance so rapidly, and it's automatic. You don't need to take any pills. You just need to tap into the knowledge that we seem to have forgotten about our own human bodies.
I used to do that unknowingly. At my last house, I had an ice bath, and I would just probably once a day, I would just take the lid off and just stick my head in there, hold my breath for a little bit, and then sort of reset.
Yeah, that's I love it when our ancient wiring guides us. Some people call it spirit, some people call it ancient wiring, but when you listen to it, my gosh, it's pretty amazing the journey it takes you on.
Yeah. Cool, man. That was pretty cool. I feel pretty relaxed.
Yeah, well, and like I said, without being silly, just look at the subtle differences on Harley's face. He's after it was probably less than 4 breaths, and probably only one of them was the full one. And just consider that I know you're an athlete, but that potentially was the first time you've taken a full medicinal dose breath. And ideally, now you've got it for the rest of your life.
Cool. So the Breathwork in Bed app, people just jump on your website to find that?
Oh, they could easier than that. Put on their phones, put in Breathwork, one word, in bed, in their app store.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll take care of the rest. We literally just tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and then it falls out of your phone exactly when you need it. So you don't have to remember it. That's I wanted to give support to people that are already tired, stressed. They don't want to remember more things. They just say, here's what I want. Take care of it for me.
And if someone wanted to get you in for a seminar or something, you do that sort of stuff, obviously, with schools and workplaces and things like that?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Tim Thomas, Breathwork in Bed. And it works really well to have a lived experience of what it is. Because technology on its own, it doesn't really do anything. But if you have a human connection and then they give you an opportunity to repeat that very pleasant experience in your own time, in your own way, then that works really well. And look, the app is just there to give people permanency and consistency in the times when they need it the most. And people love it going to sleep, but it's the morning routine that really rocks their socks. Because most people, if they were anything like me, the first 5 minutes of the day is a goddamn struggle. What's the fucking point, right?
Yeah.
And you know, every single day I have to battle my own resistance to this. Okay. There's always a part of me saying breathwork is bullshit, it won't work. Even though I've got a company, right? Because like, okay, last night, literally I'm trying to get a good night's sleep because I wanted to get here. Then I get a call at 1 a.m. and there's some guy in the US wanting to do a podcast with me because he's got the time wrong. And I'm like, you know, blue light in my eyes, trying to sort that. And then I'm going back to sleep. I'm like, oh, get back to sleep. Oh, Tim, do breath work. I'm like, And I'm like, no, Tim, do breath work. Okay. And then I just push the button because this thing is your best friend at 2 a.m. Even though there's a part of me saying breath work is bullshit, it won't work. 2 or 3 minutes into it, you're like, oh my gosh, there it is. There it is again, you know. So this is why, yes, breathwork is powerful, but yes, it does need guidance. Otherwise, the state that we're currently in will resist it, as my experience of it's been. Yeah.
That's powerful to hear though, because like you being SME, I guess, in the topic, still admitting that you find it hard and you call it out sometimes as being bullshit. Like, you know, David Goggins saying he hates fucking running and he'll stare at his shoes for half an hour before he goes for a run. I think we need to hear those sort of things so that when we have that resistance ourselves, we go, oh, this is normal. Just got to push through it. Well, this feeling of not wanting to do it is very normal.
Well, let's translate that though, because when I've noticed if we're about to become powerful, there's powerful resistance in the way that there's parts of us that are disempowered and they know that they're about to be kicked out. And they're like, this is our last stand. We can't retreat any further. We must stop this person. Okay. And they have all these different ways of doing it. But if we can reinterpret that saying, okay, the resistance I'm feeling right now is the clearest indicator that something positive and powerful is about to enter my world. Because if there was an enemy saying, hey, you need to go north, man, no, I need to go south. You know, so this is where your own internal resistance, for me, is the absolute clearest indicator that something super powerful is going to come through because of the powerful resistance.
Nice. That's a powerful thought. Beautiful. Cool, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming, sharing.
Thanks for participating so fully.
That was good. I enjoyed that. I have an open mind, willing to try anything, especially if it's something we can all do for free, right? So to make a big difference in our lives, why not?
Well, and look, you know, as easily as you did that, I put it to you that you might come across somebody who needs a bit of a mental reset, needs to have their stress reduced. As easily as I showed you, you could show them. And, you know, we have to be the ones to normalize this. I know it's normal, you know, people sucking on their vapes, people taking pills, people taking alcohol, that's sort of accepted. But we have to be the ones to normalize the first place we go is inside ourselves and shine a light onto that awesomeness we've all been gifted, but we've just been trained out of looking for.
Yeah, for sure. All the dopamine. Good stuff, brother. Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Cheers. Bye, guys. The Grey Man Podcast is a veteran-run platform dedicated to sharing authentic experiences from current and former service members. These stories are shared to foster connection, understanding, and support within the veteran community. Episodes may contain raw, emotionally charged content that some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. The views and opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Grey Man Podcast, its host, or affiliated partners. The Grey Man Podcast assumes no liability for any statements, opinions, or representations made by guests during interviews or discussions.